Buen día, señor. El Papa Alfa 22, por información, arribamos a la zona de su posición. ¿Podría confirmar su posición actual, cambio? ¿Y situación?
Ok, bueno, mi posición actual es 47 grados, 40 minutos, punto 5. Estamos navegando con un curso general sur, en este momento 179, a 13.6, 13.7 nudos. Estamos en persecución de buque pesquero aparentemente bandera china.
This is Argentine Coast Guard vessel Mantilla. You're responsible for the safety of your crew and your ship. You're about to receive direct fire on the bow part of your ship.
Ok, fuego libre, un disparo.
In March 2016, off the coast of Patagonia, a Chinese squid jigger called the Lu Yan Yuan Yu 10 went dark, switching off its AIS transponder and illegally crossed into Argentina's territorial waters. The ship was part of an enormous armada of Chinese fishing vessels that gather each year to fish the high seas squid grounds off Argentina's southern coast. And, each year, an unknown number of these ships infiltrate Argentina's national waters to extract squid under the cover of darkness, and then retreat back to international territory, out of the reach of authorities. But this time, the Lu Yan Yuan Yu would not be so fortunate. Several miles inside Argentine territory, the Coast Guard patrol spotted the ship. The Chinese vessel attempted to flee back into international waters, in defiance of Coast Guard orders to halt. Warning shots were fired. Then, the Lu Yan Yuan Yu veered onto a collision course with the patrol vessel. The Coast Guard captain ordered his men to open fire on the Chinese ship. The high-caliber rounds punctured the hull of the Lu Yan Yuan Yu. As the squid jigger listed and sank, all 29 of its crew leapt into the frigid waters of the South Atlantic. All but 4 were gathered up by a nearby Chinese squid ship. The remaining crew, including the captain, were pulled from the water and arrested.
The violent encounter that occurred that day was not typical. But incursions by Chinese fishing vessels into other countries' territorial waters is a common occurrence. Some of these incursions are illegal in nature when fishing vessels surreptitiously enter the economic exclusive zones of other countries. But recently, more and more, Chinese companies are using a legal loophole to exploit local waters. From South America to Africa to the far Pacific, China has been buying its way into restricted national fishing grounds, primarily using a process known as flagging in. This is a method where Chinese companies use local business partnerships to register their ships under the flag of another country, allowing them to fish in that country's territorial waters. For China, this soft power strategy represents a new approach for gaining dominance over the global seafood market. Subtler than simply entering foreign coastal areas to fish illegally, flagging in is less likely to result in political clashes, bad press, or sunken vessels. Investigators at the Outlaw Ocean Project have identified over a dozen countries where Chinese ships have flagged in. The seafood that these ships extract is often sent back to China for processing, and then exported to wealthier consumers, like those in the US or Europe. As part of a 4-year investigation into China's distant water fishing fleet, a team of reporters from the Outlaw Ocean Project boarded Chinese fishing vessels off the coast of West Africa the high seas near the Galapagos Islands, and an area known as the Blue Hole near the Falkland Islands. They encountered a range of human rights concerns and labor violations, including inhumane living conditions, passport confiscation, malnutrition, workers on shifts lasting up to 2 days, and deckhands claiming to be held against their will. In June 2023, these same reporters were contacted by authorities after a woman made a worrisome discovery on a beach in Uruguay.
Venía caminando y vi una botella, la levanté, me di cuenta que tenía en el interior una servilleta de papel escrita y le saqué una foto y le mandé.
Many of these crimes have taken place on the high seas, beyond any country's territorial jurisdiction. But increasingly, Chinese-owned vessels are fishing in the local waters of nations whose governments are often ill-equipped to police them, typically lacking the finances, the Coast Guard vessels, or the political will to board and spot-check the ships. This is especially true off the coast of West Africa. Local artisanal fishers, whose lives depend on what they're able to catch, say their harvests have dropped by as much as 90%.
That's the second net. There's no fish. There were lots of fish around here, but even if we wait an hour, we won't catch anything. Our waters have turned into a liquid desert.
Chinese-owned ships have been seen fishing in these restricted areas and using nets that are designed to catch everything in their path, including undersized and juvenile fish. In a process that wreaks havoc on marine ecosystems, the juvenile fish are then thrown overboard dead, while the larger ones are processed and frozen.
We also did a thorough search of the vessel. That's where we found the illegal, unreported, and unregulated issues. The catch of juvenile fish, which is not supposed to be landed by this type of vessel.
The maritime domain is an important front in China's growth plans. This includes not just exerting dominance over contested waters like the South China Sea, but also consolidating control over shipping, fishing, and commercial ports in other countries. Chinese companies are operating in over 90 foreign fishing ports. They have fish processing plants, cold storage facilities, and shipping terminals. They've also made billion-dollar investments in other countries' railway systems, hydroelectric dams, lithium mines, and solar and wind power plants. And with these large investments comes enormous influence over foreign governments.
As for the case of the Lu Yan Yuan Yu 10, the majority of the crew, who were rescued by the other Chinese squid vessel, were sent directly back to China, never facing any charges for what took place that day. The captain and 3 remaining crew, arrested by the Argentine Coast Guard, were brought to shore and charged with a range of crimes, including violating fishing laws, resisting arrest, and endangering a Coast Guard vessel, and put under house arrest. The sinking of the Lu Yan Yuan Yu sparked a media firestorm, with footage of the sinking making it onto local news outlets in Argentina, as well as abroad. All signs seemed to point to prosecution for the captain and his remaining crew. But then, China's foreign ministry began pushing back, casting doubt around the facts of the sinking and culpability of the captain. Within a few weeks, the 4 Chinese crew were released without penalty and immediately repatriated back to China. The following month, Argentina's foreign minister flew to Beijing to meet with China's foreign minister, a man named Wang Yi. After the meeting, Pesquero hailed their country's voyage of overall cooperation and promised another surge of Chinese investment to Argentina.
The trend here is clear. China is strategically and often legally growing its reach over the oceans, not just by dominating the high seas, but by flagging in. That matters for a huge variety of reasons. Food security in poorer countries, seeing their main source of protein getting exported. Sovereignty worries about who really decides what happens in these countries' waters. Ocean conservation as nearshore stocks inch toward collapse. And the loss of revenue in places where these profits likely should stay local. This global trend has been overlooked partly because it is disparate and often happening discreetly. But the other reason the trend is happening may be because it is delivering cheap and seemingly inexhaustible seafood to many consumers in the US and Europe. The question that remains is how long this will last and who in the end will pay the price.